What if a harmless game opened a door to something that can't be closed? We thought it was just a joke, until it wasn't. My name is Astor, and this is the story of how my friends and I opened a door we didn't understand. It all began on a Friday night. My friends and I had planned our usual bi-monthly sleepover, which we switch in each other's house. This week, we are sleeping over at Jody's house. My friends and I, Jody, Kalil, Christine, Norman, and Leon, were excited about this sleepover because we had to cancel the last time because Leon had to travel back home for his grandmother's funeral. Though we are all adults and busy with our lives, the sleepover is our thing, and it is something we all looked forward to twice a month. Getting to Jody's house, I found Kalil and Christine already there. A few minutes later, Leon and Norman arrived together. Earlier in the group chat, we agreed to use the Ouija board Jody's aunt left in her house before she left for Africa. Her aunt was into spiritual stuff and all that. Though all we wanted was to see if we could speak to Leon's grandma and a few friends we lost in an accident while growing up. We made our research online and found out how to use the Ouija board. Jody was skeptical about what we were going to do. She said it was dangerous and didn't think it was a good idea. But we thought we knew better and that nothing bad was going to happen. Moreover, none of us put much stock into that kind of stuff anyways. We played a round of games and caught up with each other's life. Then we watched some movies while we waited for midnight. The stuff we found online said that's when spirits are more receptive. We had to move the chairs in Jody's sitting room to make space so we could sit on the floor. We turned off the lights and light candles around the room. Setting the board on the floor, we all sat around it with the planchette in our hands. We decided to try with Leon's grandma first. Leon called her name. Everyone holds their breath. The planchette glides, spelling her name, but nothing happens. No otherworldly feeling or sensation. Everyone expels their breath. We looked at each other and burst into laughter at our foolishness. We were all actually scared. Leon tries calling his grandma several times without response. I think we should try calling someone else, Norman says. I guess we should do that, at least to see what happens. Who wants to go first? Kalil replied. I think Astor should go first, Jody said. I didn't get why I should go first, but anyways. I tried calling my childhood best friend Gary, who died in a fire when we were 12. The planchette moved but didn't spell anything. I think the Ouija board is broken, Christine said. Maybe, or maybe we aren't using it right, Jody replied. How else do you use a Ouija board? It's not like it's rocket science, Kalil replied. I'm just saying maybe we are doing it wrong, that's all Jody said to him. Someone else should try, I said. Before anyone could say anything else, the planchette glides on its own, spelling a name, I am here, and glides again, saying I'm here. What the fuck? Leon springs up and backs away. I think it's just the wind. This is not serious, Christine said with a laugh. We all gave her the "Are you for real" look. What do you mean it's the wind? We're in a room with the doors and windows closed, Jody said. Guys, I think it's saying something, Norman said in a whisper. Looking at the Ouija board, the planchette spells sit. At this point, we were getting freaked out. No one wanted to sit down. We all stood looking at each other. Next thing we know, the air in the room turns cold and pricks at our skin as the candles flickered. Oh God, I knew this was a bad idea, Jody cried. The planchette moved around and spells sit this time with a loud bang. We all rushed to sit down. I looked at my friends' faces, and they all looked petrified. What do you want? I asked. The planchette moves again, you. Okay, this is getting too serious for my taste. What do you mean? Leon asked. It didn't answer. We waited for a few minutes, but all was silent. However, the room was getting colder. I think it's gone, Christine says. I doubt it, but I hope it's true. Next thing, we hear footsteps moving in the kitchen, then cupboards opening and things clattering in there. Someone should check it out, Kalil said. No one volunteered to do that for obvious reasons. The atmosphere in the room was tense. We heard a noise like nails scratching on the wall. The candles kept flickering. What do we do? Jody asked. No one answered. This was more than we bargained for, and no one has any idea on how to get out this situation. The planchette moved again. It kept moving but without spelling anything. A force picked up the board and smashed it on the wall. Everything went silent. The cold left the room, the candles quit flickering, and the tension in the room eased out. Is it gone? Leon asked. "I think so," Norman replied. "Thank God," Jody said and burst into tears. We all let out a collective sigh of relief. This night almost took a terrible turn. I looked at the clock, and it read a few minutes past 1 a.m. "I think we should clear everything up and get some sleep. We'll feel better in the morning," I said. We all got up, switched on the light, and rearranged the room to its previous state. Everyone was silent. I guess we are freaked out about what happened tonight. The girls went into Jody's room while the boys took guest room. Everything was quiet, but I couldn't sleep. My body couldn't relax. I guess the adrenaline from the scare hadn't left my body. A few minutes later, there was a scream of pure terror from the girls. Everyone was alert in an instant. The girls ran into the sitting room. They were shaking from head to toe. And just when we thought the nightmare was over, the real horror began. We saw him. He was in our room. Christine breaks down in tears, while Jody stood in stupefied shock. He was lying down in between us and just stared at us. Christine continued, "He just laid there doing nothing but stare. What does he want? I think he's not a violent spirit. He hasn't hurt any of us yet. Maybe we can reason with it to make it go back," Norman said. "How do we reason with it? The board is broken," Kalil replied. A door banged somewhere in the house, causing everyone to jump. The air became colder and tighter. The lights began flickering. The curtains were moving even with the windows shut. Objects were flying around. "I think we called forth a spirit, and it's not leaving anytime soon. The problem is we don't know if we're going to be hurt in the process. Jody, why don't you call your aunt and ask her what we should do? She's into this kind of stuff. She might have an idea of how to get rid of it," Leon said to Jody. "She's in Africa. How do I call her all the way in fucking Africa?" Jody screamed. "You can send her an email or a DM on social media. She might see it or something," Leon yelled back. There was some howling and growling all around us, like there were more than one spirit. We all huddled together while Jody texted her aunt on Instagram. The light went off and there was shuffling in the room. Everyone was shouting and trying to get to the light switch. Jody switches on her phone flashlight, and there was the spirit standing in front of us grinning. Jody dropped her phone and ran to the back of the room, and we couldn't see anything. The dark felt oppressive. We felt them walking around us, tasting us, and we just stood there. We felt fear like never before. Terror ran through our veins. The spirit kept walking round and round like it was looking for something. We felt the spirit leave the room. Then lights came on, but Kalil was nowhere to be seen. We searched for him all over the house, but we couldn't find him. A few minutes later, he comes down the stairs smiling in an eerie way. "Where have you been?" Christine asked. "Were you guys looking for me?" "I was here," he replied. "Where?" we all asked in unison. "Right here," he said. We looked at each other. Something is wrong. He started laughing in a chilly way. He stops laughing abruptly, turns his head mechanically, and says, "What are you guys staring at?" "I'm looking for Melissa. Where is she?" "Why do you have my Ouija board? Did she decide to release me?" "Your Ouija board? What do you mean?" Jody asked. "I've been trapped in there for a long, long time. I wonder why she set me free," it replied. "I can smell her around this house. We have a score to settle. It's been a long time coming," it said in a distorted voice. "Melissa, Melissa, Melissa." It kept yelling her name. Its voice kept rising an octave each time he calls her name. We had to clap our hands over our ears because his voice was too loud. "She's not here," Jody yelled at him. At first it didn't hear her. Then suddenly it went silent, turns to her, stares at her for some seconds and smiles. "You're related to her. You will do quite well for what I have in mind. I think we just released a captive spirit, and I don't think it is a friendly one. What have we done? What have we done? I'm going to use your friend for a little while, just until I can do what I have to do. Hope you guys don't mind." The spirit rushes towards us with a knife. "Where did it get a knife?" "Run," Norman yells. I picked up Jody's phone. We really need to speak to her aunt if we do not want to die. We ran all the way to Jody's room and shut the door. The spirit kept scratching at the door and yelling gibberish. I hand Jody's phone to her. "You need to reach your aunt right now." She unlocks the phone and saw her aunt has been calling her back. We video call Melissa and thankfully she answered. "What did you guys do?" She yelled, "I specifically told you not to touch the board, never the board." We were just playing around. We didn't think things would escalate to this extent, Jody said tearfully. We're scared. He has possessed Kalil and we don't know what to do. It's asking for you. The board is not a normal Ouija board. It is a vessel that was used to hold a volatile spirit. It's been there for almost 50 years. I inherited the board from my mother. This spirit has been quick to possess and drain its victim of life while it causes harm and destruction. Once its victim is drained of life, it discards them and chooses a new one. So Kalil isn't safe? Is there no way to save him? I asked. You can save him by making the spirit leave its possession of him, which is difficult because it won't go away nicely, she replied. Where is the Ouija board? She asked. It's broken, I replied. Come again? She said. The spirit broke it as soon as it got out of it, I said. You need that board to get it imprisoned again. You need to get the board back and fix it together before you can even think of saving your friend, she replied. So you are saying we need to get the board glued back together in order to get the spirits to go back into it? I asked. And Fry asked. Yes, she replied. That doesn't sound so hard, I said. If only I knew getting the board back was easier said than done. When you fix the board, call his name and then thank him for coming. And ask him to leave, Melissa said. Make sure you ask it to leave. Do not use any other word. If not, it'll linger. We made plans on how to retrieve the broken board from the living room. We divided ourselves into two groups. The boys were in charge of distracting the spirit, while the girls were to get the board and come back to the room. We, the boys, left first, and on getting to the top of stairs, we saw Kalil, or should I say the spirit, sitting in an armchair in the sitting room. Looks like it was waiting for us. It smiled in an awful way. The smile gave me shivers. I want the girl, it said. What girl? Norman asked. Melissa's blood, it replied. I don't think that's possible. You have to get through us first, Leon replied. That's easy, it snarled. It threw us out of the way in different directions by just waving its hand. I guess the longer it's in possession of a body, the stronger it gets. We're screwed if we don't make it go away. We may lose our friend and our life in the process. Why do you need the girl? I asked. I need her blood, so I can leave this house. I've been confined to this house by a Gunther, and only the blood of a Gunther can break the spell. We were shocked. This is deeper than any of us thought. I spied the girls coming down the stairs and moving towards the Ouija board. I tried to get up and discovered I have a broken arm from where he threw me against the wall. Looking at Leon and Norman, they're both bleeding. I have never broken a bone in my life. It hurt like hell. Holding my arm, I get up because I have no plans to die here and not lose my friends because of our foolishness. The girls get to the Ouija board and grab it. They start tiptoeing back to the room until Christine steps on the part of the stairs that creaks. The spirit whirls around and sees them. It snarls and grips Christine by the throat, trying to squeeze the life out of her. Jody runs up the stairs with the board, and it drops Christine and chases after her. We all rush towards the stairs. Getting to the hallway, we find the spirit trying to break down the door to get to her. When it sees us, it growls and chases us down the stairs, while we try to distract it long enough to give Jody and Christine enough time to glue the board together and send him back. It keeps thrashing and breaking things in its way, trying to get to any of us. With our bodies beaten and battered, we ran to the kitchen and locked the door. Meanwhile, we didn't want to hurt it because inasmuch it is hurting us, we can't hurt it back because we'll be indirectly hurting Kalil. It kept pounding on the door trying to break it down. Then we heard Jody calling it by its name. It goes silent, like the silence before a storm. I hear it move away from the kitchen door. Who told you that name? It asked. My aunt told me all about you, Jody replied. And what did she tell you? She told me how I can make you go back where you're from and how knowing your name is enough to control you, she said. Now Cassius, thank you for coming. You may now leave. I want you to go back where you came out from, Jody said in a forceful voice. Cassius was furious, so furious his body vibrated with it. I'll come back for you, Gunther girl. Don't you ever think you've won this round. I'll come back and get my revenge, he growled. The whole house shook like there was an army battering it from the foundation. The lights flickered and went off. When the lights came on again, Kalil was on the floor. What happened, guys? What happened to the house? And why is everyone bleeding and injured? Thank God you're okay. Jody ran to him and hugged him. He just had a bewildered expression. He didn't understand what was happening. but we're all just happy he's okay, and Cassius was back where he belonged. Looking out the window, I saw dawn approaching, and I know we'll be okay. The dawn comes with a new day and light to wash away the terror we experienced all through the night. We survived that night, not only with physical wounds but also with emotional ones, and a scar in our hearts that'll remain forever. We got to see what happens when you play with things you don't understand. Sometimes there are whispers in the dark and shadows around corners that strike a familiar fear in our hearts. That fear is something we get to live with forever, because we thought opening forbidden doors were a joke.